Broadcasting the boisterous part of the fastest game in the world. So strap on your lids and lace them up, Rook. You're listening to the BarnChirpers Hockey Podcast. Take a lap. Clap it up, boys. Clap it up. Happy New Year to everybody out there. It is a new year. Same show. We're still chirping, still talking S. And you can do that with us at BarnChirpers Pod on the Instagram and the threads. You know what to do with all the podcasting platforms and the YouTubes. Hit the subscribe, the like, the share, the 5-star. Send us a free coffee, or maybe that's another thing. I don't really know how the internet works. But hey, thanks for listening to us. And Captain, that is a beautiful mustard yellow mustard cat's sweater. It's Johansson, right?
That's
what Liam had. Yeah,
yeah.
That's right.
I got a Matthias Ekholm.
That's right.
Days before he got traded.
Then he got traded. That's right. Yeah, that's always fun. But hey, you never know. Maybe he'll be back. Who knows? It is, trade talks are going to be heating up here now that we're in January. So we'll see what happens. Maybe he gets moved again. But speaking of sweaters, we have one more sweater game to play. So you already know it's in the Western Conference.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give you another hint because I don't know if I've ever talked about this one. So it is a current player. So you give me those two hints. Let's what are we doing? Let's go ahead and rock and roll. You have two hints. You should let's see if you nail it.
I mean, look, before we even get any further, I'm happy that I somehow nailed last week's because that's one we've never talked about.
Yeah, it's true. Yep.
Okay, current player, Western Conference. Somebody we've never talked about.
I mean, maybe I might have mentioned. It's possible, but I don't recall. It might have been a long time ago that I mentioned this player.
Oh boy.
I don't remember for sure.
Is it a defenseman?
Cold.
Okay. I don't want to go through all the positions, but
waste your questions on. Oh, is it a right winger?
Yeah.
Is it a third line guy?
All right, West Coast. All right, is this a member of the Seattle Kraken?
Cold.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I went with a team and a position.
Yeah. Remember, not just West Coast, Western Conference.
Western Conference, right. You already hit me off with the Blues one once.
Yep.
Sure did. Because that one tripped me up. I always forget that they're Western Conference. Is it a Dallas Star?
Hot.
Okay. Now I have to figure out who the player is. Who have we talked about?
Handful of options on that squad.
Yeah. Who have we actually talked about, though? We've talked about Ben. I know you like this player, and I think you've mentioned before that you're rooting for him to get one because he spent so much time on the Sharks. Pavelski?
You're warm, but it's not Pavelski. And I do like Captain America. I do definitely like Captain America. But you do have the team right. It is a Dallas Star. So I'll give you that home green right there.
Such a good green.
It is a good green. It's very solid. And the player is none other than
Jason Robertson.
Number 21, Jason Robertson, the kid.
That's probably the guy. Yeah.
Had a hell of a year last year. Hasn't really shown up yet this year.
Surprisingly, because Dallas is still in the thick of things. And
Dallas is doing good, but I'm not really sure what's going on with him.
Yeah, it feels like I'm not really seeing any, maybe I'm just not paying close enough attention. Anybody really standing out for them. It seems like it's a team effort this year, but maybe he specifically just hasn't stepped up yet.
We talked about this with the Habs sweater and the Caulfield sweater, the ties, right? I'm not necessarily a fan of that when I see it on TV, but in person, I really like it, especially when it's true laces. They're not dinky. They're not like skinny and thin. They're like legit laces. So in person, I'm good with it. And another praise to the Adidas sweaters. This NHL crest is thick. It's a thick NHL crest.
Yeah.
Is yours that same way?
No, actually, I mean it's a good one, but I actually really love this one specifically. But
Well, yours is Adidas, isn't it? Or no?
yeah, it is. It is. It's
Oh.
weird. Like this one isn't thick. I feel like some of my other ones are. That's why I kind of did this. I was like, wait a second, is this one? This one's not.
Huh. But yeah. Anyway. Oh, and this one has the not obviously that I'm wearing pads with it, but it has the
fight strap.
The fight strap.
I got a fight strap too.
Yeah. So that's fun too. But yeah, I mean this is the last of my my jersey haul for now. Anyways, I need to save up for some other things in real life that count and not spend my money on sweaters. But that is my newest hobby is buying sweaters. Speaking of sweaters, Justin, we were kind of down on the PWHL sweaters because they're kind of lame. But the first inaugural game happened on New Year's Day, and boy, oh boy, I was impressed. Top to bottom, I was impressed. So while I put this sweater on, take it away. We're going to talk about our first line, the PWHL.
I firstly want to say, like, just super excited with the PWHL just in general because we've kind of been down on like the promotion of the league. We've been kind of down on them not having, nicknames and the sweaters being kind of boring. But
well, and it just seems like a kind of a failure on management part because they should be like spending and promoting this awesome new league for the first ever professional women's hockey league. Like, that's a big thing. I mean, yes, we have kind of been down on it, but I guess more so in the sense that we're more so disappointed that it hasn't been getting more promotion.
Yeah. But all that to say, the product, the on ice product, oh my God.
It was really good.
I had my reservations just because, I watched some PHF and not the hockey, the PHF was bad, but like they didn't have a lot of money coming in. So like the actual broadcasts weren't really well lit. They seemed they were playing these really small barns that you do what you got to do. Like that's not a knock. You play where people are going to come. But specifically in that the Toronto barn was really well lit. The ice looked really good. The players looked great. And again, sure, the jerseys are boring in that they just say the city, diagonally, which, man, I wish we could have done better than that. But like being in the chat, which I watched both games. I watched them both on YouTube, live with other people was awesome.
Yeah.
The chat was awesome. Cool. But a bunch of people brought up, hey, they want to get the communities involved. Actually, as a matter of fact, I think the president of the PWHL, there was a higher up on the PWHL after the first game who said nicknames and stuff are coming. We want to get the communities involved. It's like, okay, I mean, you've had time to do that, but I do also appreciate, let's get the teams out on the ice and let them figure out an identity. Like you could, the four teams I've seen had very distinct identities. Like Toronto seems very similar to my New Jersey Devils, where like they could pounce. They just got goalied. Because in the second period, a lot of prolonged, but what you do, Schroeder was unsolvable that night. There just wasn't any beating her.
Yeah, she was on fire.
And like New York, very patient club, just waited for their opportunities, and then when they got them, they struck. They went for broke. I like that they're waiting to see what the identities of the team are before they name them. But like that said, like the jersey, like the colors that they've selected for each club say magnifique.
Yeah, agreed. To kind of all your same points there. I can understand letting the women show what the team is. I'm into that. Uh, I guess maybe we are conditioned in sports to have teams with names. So looking at it like that, excuse me, looking at it like that, I can understand. Okay, all right, let's let the league and let them develop, the identities for each team and for the whole league on their own, other than giving them a nickname or whatever. Okay, I can get that. I guess my only gripe, if I have to gripe about something, is I do just wish that there was something different other than just the colors, because the colors are great. I can 100% get behind that. It does separate each team from each other, but they do all have the same way that their lettering is. So that's my only gripe. But we're not going to gripe about anything else on the show. That first game, man, I tell you what, the old Maple Leaf Gardens is where Toronto plays. Sold out, and apparently the whole season is sold out too. That they're trying to open up more seating for Toronto, so that is awesome. I've heard the same thing for Ottawa, and I don't know. I don't have confirmation about that, but that is awesome. And speaking to that, we were going to save this for the empty net, but we'll talk about it now since we're there. Sold out crowd in Ottawa as well on January 2nd. So that would have been yesterday, right? If I'm on my right days, that would have been yesterday. And that was the largest crowd in professional women's hockey history, 8,318 fans. So Ottawa is playing in a bigger barn than Toronto, which is interesting to me. And Minnesota is playing at the XL Energy Center. So they're playing in the biggest barn, which is also interesting. So across the board, this is great to see right off the bat here. 2 sold out games, and we're already getting the largest crowds in professional women's hockey. I mean, snaps and claps to that. We love to see this on the show, and just as a hockey fan in general. But again, across the board, I mean, that's good for professional women's sports too. Like if you can build on this for other things, other leagues. And I know obviously professional women's hockey isn't the first professional women's league in history, but this is a good sign for things to come, I think, just in professional sports for women too.
I think again, it's not apples to apples, but I think the closest thing you can compare it to is the WNBA, which has managed to stick around for 25 years. But I think we're off to a better start with the PWHL than we were with the WNBA. And I think that one of the things, again, you run out the marketing wise, it makes sense to come out with nicknames and whatever. But with hockey, I feel like you want to be in on that ground floor. Like you want the fans to feel like they're part of that community, and part of that is helping name the team. I do. I agree. You hate to see the missed marketing opportunity, like the money that's getting left on the table. Because, I mean, I thought for sure I was going to be a Toronto fan because I'm a Sarah Nurse mark. But like when I watched Ottawa last night, it's very close to the kind of hockey that I love. And they're far and away the most team. The way they huddled, they were all smiles. Right. They were like, it was the kind of atmosphere that I want from the hockey club I follow. So I might end up an Ottawa fan. It's going to be hard for me to drop money.
Well, that's the same thing too. Like I would.
Clearly, we're on a delay again.
That's okay.
Let me just finish this point. It's going to be hard for me to drop money on a sweater unless I like just absolutely fall in love with a player that I just need to have. It's going to be hard for me to drop money on a sweater that doesn't have a crest that doesn't, that just says Ottawa. Like it's going to be hard for me to come out of my pocket for that.
I agree. Yeah. It definitely, that's all I was going to say before our delay kicked in there. That, yeah, I want to have merch, and I want to have, be able to rep the squad. Obviously, I'm going to be a Minnesota fan because I love that. So that's the only thing. Again, not to be nitpicky on this show because we want to be praising the PWHL because it turned out to be great. Okay, I have one more gripe, and that's simply that. Thankfully, I did find the game on YouTube, but man, there was a tough time. I mean, I just happened to go to YouTube and like, I wonder if I can see it if someone has a live stream, and it was right there on the PWHL, feed. That's that from anything that I saw wasn't put out where you could watch it. The only thing that I saw was Sportsnet Canada talking about you can watch it if you're in Canada or the New York region. Like, all right, well, I'm not any of those. So I just happened to stumble upon YouTube. So I just wish that was put out more. We did put it up on our Instagram. So if you're listening to this, you can watch PWHL games on YouTube, which is great. So again, the first match was Toronto versus New York. A lot of firsts in that game, Justin. The first PWHL goal was by Ella Shelton of New York. Whew, we talked about Schroeder in the net, first PWHL shutout. Of course, New York gets the first PWHL win in history. And then the very next day, Ottawa gets the first ever overtime win. So a lot of firsts in the PWHL. Boom, boom, boom. Stick taps to that.
Yeah, and I want to tag onto this because this goes back to what I was saying about being in the chat in the YouTube. Stick taps to the, as she proclaimed herself, the YouTube gal. She hasn't named herself, but the PWHL's YouTube gal, who's just in there moderating. She's just in there moderating chat, having a blast. We've had 2 games, both as we called spicy hockey, and overtime last night we called extra spicy hockey. So it was just a blast. And I also wanted to point out,
nice. Yes,
KEG is their name on YouTube. KEG, all caps. I don't know the person's name, but I had a couple back and forth with them in the YouTube chat. They said they were going to subscribe. So hi, Keg. Hopefully you're here. But it was,
hey, Keg, what's up? Excuse me, I was wrong. Montreal got the first overtime win. They were playing in Ottawa, but Montreal got the first overtime win. Let me correct myself about that. My apologies.
And they came back too. Ottawa going into like the last 2 minutes was up 2-1. Montreal tied it up, with 2 minutes left, and then got the W in overtime. But it's really good hockey. Like the same questions keep getting asked. Are they allowed to hit? Yes. Watch it. There's hit. Like I think technically in the rule book is you can't have open ice hits, but they were hitting. It was physical. It wasn't noticeably slower. I didn't see anything noticeably slower of watching, NHL. I mean, there's going to be a difference between a lot of the pros in the NHL have been literally playing at a professional level for years. This is the first time that women can really truly be considered professional. So they've played a game. Give them a break. Hits, fights, like it's gotten spicy in these 2 games. Like they're not shying from hits. They're not shying from fights. I think there's still like a rosy feeling of, hey, this is a new thing. We're all friends. I think that's going to dissolve quickly. I think you're going to see like what you want to see from hockey if you watch the PWHL.
I agree. And I remember in the first period, there was, I want to say 3 or 4 penalties called. But after that first period, and I think it was kind of the same way for the refs, like this was exciting, right? We were kind of, everybody's kind of on their heels, right? Hey, this is exciting, right? But after that, the whistles were kind of put away, unless it was something egregious. I loved that. Number one, number two, yeah, like you said, physicality. Like there was some hits, and I love that. I was listening to an interview that Sarah Nurse did on another podcast, and she is on the board to do the CBA. And I guess that was one of the things that they wanted to have was, you know, to have physicality, because they play a physical game. Like there's no reason why there can't be hits. So I hope that does continue. Again, like just like for in the NHL, like, do we necessarily need egregious hits? No, we don't want to see anybody get hit from behind. We don't want to see anybody get clipped in the leg, but a good solid hit in the boards, physicality in front of the net. Yeah. Why don't we? It's hockey. That's what hockey was born on. It's physicality. Yeah. So let's continue that. So hopefully that does continue. And like you said, I think I agree too that, it's the first week essentially of the season. Like, oh my God, this is so great. I think that's going to dissipate over the next couple weeks where it's like, nah, it's game time now. Like, yeah, we're all in this league together, but I want to win. And I think, most teams will take that moving forward, just like you said there.
So one other thing I wanted to mention, because this is probably the first in sports, probably, I would guess, history, unless anytime it would have happened before this, somebody would have had to have been closeted. Montreal's second goal last night, two line mates, they were engaged. The goal scorer was engaged to the person who gave him the assist.
Awesome.
Right? Like from line mates to life mates. Like how awesome is that?
That's pretty dope.
I mean, like I relish the fact
was that the first one in the franchise?
It was the second goal in the franchise. So like it was the game that tied it up. It was the game tie up. So like that would have been really cool if it was the first goal.
Oh, that's still pretty cool.
Like still like the fact that we've never had that. I can't wait till we live in a world where people can openly be themselves, and that can happen in men's sports too. Like it should be able to happen. Like this should not be a first, but it is. And it's just really an like how, number one, how adorable, like how sweet and cute is that, but like just how awesome is that to be able to spend, like have that moment in this game with somebody you care so much about that you're planning on spending your life with. Like it was just awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Another thing I wanted to touch on with why this is such a big deal is this is literally the first time that best on best is in the same league. In the past we've had split leagues, whether it was the PHF or I forget all the leagues that existed before, but you didn't necessarily have all the best players playing in the same league. So now that you have best on best, like I think that's the most exciting thing about the PWHL is like we finally have all the best players playing in the same league. That would essentially be like if the NHL was mostly with some NHL guys, AHL guys, and then, I don't know, but everybody else is playing in Sweden or something or whatever the case, you know what I mean? So this is just huge for PWHL. And, again, we have our little gripes. Probably we'll still chirp at that a little bit. But I also, to that same point, believe if that didn't happen, like then there wouldn't necessarily be a reason for them to move forward and try to continue to progress the league, right? You need a little bit of push to be like, yeah, you're right. We do need to get better at something, or we do need to look at this a different way, right? So I look at that as constructive. Like I want this league to succeed. What does that look like when we have, separate team names when the teams can separate themselves more? But to round it back out, to end this part of the conversation, I do agree with you of how I do think the teams from what I've seen so far, have started to give themselves an identity without necessarily being, whatever, Toronto, insert name, Ottawa, insert name. I think they have established an identity of like what type of hockey you're going to see from those squads.
You love to see it. And if YouTube gal, if you found your way here, your BarnChirpers would love to do like some pregame, or we could do some entertainment in between periods.
Interviews, pregame, postgame, something, anything. Yeah, we're on board for it. Let's go. We're on board for it for sure.
Love to help,
Captain. I got a couple of so this is hot off the presses, Justin. Moving over to the NHL, we talked about a couple of trade rumors last week. This is hot off the presses. Anthony Duclair possibly set to go to the Boston Bruins. How do you feel about that?
Oh, I hate that. I mean, I hate it.
Yeah, I don't really like it either.
I mean, it's weird because I don't know, maybe I'm just misplacing his play. I don't see it there either. Like, I don't see him working with their offense. But again, maybe I'm wrong. We also just kind of got brutalized by Boston a couple days ago, so like it's still kind of fresh on my mind. I mean, we brought up Vancouver last week, and I love that. I don't see where he fits into Boston.
Yeah, I don't necessarily see it just by looking from the outside there, but I mean he could very easily become, I wouldn't necessarily say an offensive juggernaut, but man, being on a team like Boston, Duclair is a proven goal scorer. He can get it done, right? Just look at his time in Florida. Like, he came up with some key goals. So if he's in Boston, yeah, I mean, I think he's kind of set up to score some, needed goals when they definitely count, crunch time, if you will. The same can be said when we talked about him going to the Canucks. But yeah, that's the hot trade rumor that I just came across this morning. I wanted to bring that up early in the show. Hopefully it doesn't happen. I'd rather see him somewhere else like Vancouver. But either way, I mean, a guy like Anthony Duclair in your squad, you're only adding to the value of your team with that. Another thing I wanted to bring up, Justin, because he's your guy. Ilya Samsonov was placed on waivers the other day from the Toronto Maple Leafs. He did clear waivers, so he is down in the AHL. Toronto Maple Leafs have Martin Jones and another guy named Hildeby, I think. Yeah. So
that's him.
I mean, I find it funny because I don't like Toronto Maple Leafs. That's hilarious to me. But I mean, hate to see it for Sammy, because I do like Sammy as a Tendy. He's a solid kid that can get the job done. But right now, woof, I think he has the worst save percentage in all of Maple Leafs history, if I'm correct. Don't quote me on that. I'm looking for that right now, but I believe I did see that. So, Sammy, what do you make of it?
I say this as a guy who has Vitek Vanacek as, look at this, the two former Caps goalies struggling this year and making their teams worse.
Yeah.
Like you said, I like Sammy. I think Sammy has the goods, but like, clearly he's just not Toronto's goalie. I don't know where he can find a home that works for him, but to me, this was going to happen, because was it last year in the playoffs? You and I think right at the beginning of this show, where Toronto lost a game, and like Sammy was like, he brushed it off like it didn't matter, or like, I can't remember what it was, but like, he gave up. And it's like, dude, you're an NHL goal. You guys just lost a playoff game. I mean, maybe care a little. And it just rolled into this year, and he's had a couple decent starts, but for the most part, it's an easy 4GA. It's like, you might as well have Darcy Kemper back there. You might as well, like, it's just not been good. So
yeah. or soup. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you hate to see it for Sammy. Like I said, to repeat myself and to back you up, I think he's a good goalie. It's just too bad he's not a good goalie for Toronto.
Yeah, I don't think he's necessarily the guy. I think that's seemingly, and I think he's shown as just a lot of pressure for him to be the guy and do all of those starts. But I guess it remains to be seen. Again, I find it funny because I don't like the Toronto Maple Leafs, but I hate it for Sammy because he's on a good squad. That can have some defense. He can probably still be. I mean, when he was with the Caps, he was pretty good as a Cap for the most part. Like he was definitely never this bad when he played for the Caps. So, woof. I guess we'll see. Kind of what happens. So a guy that I think we definitely need to talk about. I was going to save this for the empty net, but again, we're kind of a little bit all over the place today, not the usual flow. But Sidney Crosby is now just moved into 12th all-time, passing Jumbo Joe Thornton for all-time points. We've talked about it, I think, the last couple of weeks. He's still doing it at 37. So sky's the limit for this kid.
It's just crazy. I mean, again, like this is another guy like you have begrudging respect for because he plays for a franchise he can't stand. And because he got so many favorable calls when like he came into the league, and it's like, Sid the kid. But like he's still playing quality hockey. And so it's like you hate to see it kind of getting peed away because Pittsburgh, I mean, I say that, and they are right now back in the thick of things. I think they're at 38 points. They might even be at 40 points, which there's like a knot of 3 or 4 squads with 40. But I don't know, man. I guess to make the direct correlation, Sid's still doing it. Covey still could, but don't you kind of wish Ovi still was? You know what I mean? Like I feel like Ovi can, but he's not.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with Ovi other than like it just seems Father Time is kind of catching up to the grade 8. And I don't know. I mean, I think team has something to do with it too. There's no more Nick Backstrom. I mean, Dylan Strome has been a solid centerpiece for the Capitals. They're 1A center, but he's not Nick Backstrom. And that was a lot in Ovi's career. A lot of it was being fed from Nick Backstrom, and now Ovi's a little bit older. So there's that playing on a, I'll say it, mediocre at best Capitals squad. Truly, it's just Lindgren has kept them in the thick of things. Now he's hurt too, so we'll see what happens there. But moving on from there, I also wanted to touch on he was on a 19-game point streak. Nathan MacKinnon. I mean, that point streak ended, but he didn't take. He literally the next game he scored a couple points again. So Mac Dog showing you what a superstar looks like, Justin. And we've praised him over the last couple weeks, Nathan MacKinnon. Being the superstar he is, he can pass, he can score, he can lay a big old hit, and he is consistent, if nothing else. So far, 20 goals, 41 assists, 61 points on the, or I'm sorry, that was, 23-24. Yeah, 20 goals, 41 assists, 61 points.
Wow. And we brought him up a good couple weeks ago when Colorado, I hate to say that they were struggling, but they were stumbling a little bit. Like they weren't really in form yet, but great star players put the team on their back and get them right back to where they need to be. And now Colorado's right back where they need to be in the thick of things, like in control of their playoff destiny. And as long as he stays healthy, that's going to continue to happen. And you'll love to see it from McKinnon. I love that dude. maybe it was because I paid attention to him he was my keeper on fantasy for the first 2 or 3 seasons. So maybe it's just because I paid attention to him. I love that guy. I love Nate McKinnon. I think he's a great hockey player. There's a understatement.
Yeah. I do. I do like Mac Truck a lot. I didn't preface that. I was giving him our third star of the week this week, even though there is a couple of guys that are ahead of him technically over the last week. He's tied this over the week with Barkov, Gensel, Draisaitl, Nyquist, and Panarin with 7 points over the last week. But I just think, like, with the consistency, so Mac Dog is appearing again in our 3 stars in a very short time. Again, consistency to me that definitely earns a third star of the week. Our second star of the week, Justin. You know what? I don't love to give this guy a second star because I've chirped him a lot. It's the Carolina Sebastian Aho. 2 goals, 10 assists, 12 points over the last week. But at the same time, you know what? Hey, you signed the contract for the big bucks, so you're supposed to be a superstar, Sebastian Aho, and you normally aren't. But over this last week, you earned your contract. So again, as I do this, then you should continue to keep scoring a la Aston Matthews. So we'll see what happens. But our second star of the week this week, Sebastian Aho, 2 goals, 10 assists, 12 points. Your thoughts on the Canes and or Sebastian Aho, Justin?
Well, of course I hate them, but like they needed him. They needed him to do that. Like they've not been themselves all season, and they've just kind of been middling and getting through it. And nobody on that club has been stepping up. Like it's just they've gone through goalie after goalie. It looks like the kid Kochetkov is kind of settling into the role. Ranta cleared waivers and came back to the club. Like just wild. But their defense has not been, up to snuff. And nobody on the front line has been scoring goals. This is the first time we've talked about a Kane, I think, at all this season. That wasn't a goalie. So the fact that he kind of finally stood up and was like, all right, well, the club needs somebody to steer the ship. I'm going to do it at least for this week. So like you said, it'll be bad for me and my devs, but you sign the deal, you sign the check, then play like it. It's as simple as that.
You got to show up.
You got to show up.
This is a superstar check-in. A guy that we haven't talked about, but a guy that has only scored 1 point he only scored 1 point in the whole month of December. Obviously now we're in January. He did score a goal last night. It's Jonathan Huberdeau making a whopping, I forget what his exact contract is. It's over $8 million though. He's supposed to be a superstar. Has disappeared for almost 2 seasons now. Again, this is the chirp at you, Jonathan Huberdeau. You're supposed to be a superstar. So why don't you play like it? Why don't you act like it? And of course, this is the chirp to now get you on a roll. So when Huberdeau gets on a roll, you're welcome for chirping you. But again, you make well over $8 million. Maybe you should play like it. And maybe Calgary would have a chance. But anyway, moving on. So, I mean, we're a goalie podcast. We love our goalies. And this very special goalie, there's no doubt in our minds that she deserves the first star of the week. First ever shutout in PWHL history. It's from PWHL New York. She is Corinne Schroeder. She made 29 saves on Monday. She gets that first she did a lot of firsts. First win in PWHL history and first shutout in PWHL history. So Corinne Schroeder, you are our first star of the week. Congratulations to the PWHL and PWHL New York. And I think to that same point, first star of the week really just goes to the entire league as well.
Yeah. But to specifically, I in the chat, I kept calling her the unsolvable Schroeder. Like she just looked great back there. Like the 29 saves doesn't tell the whole story because especially in that second period, Toronto was poised. Like they were focused. They were on her. And she was just a wall, man. Like there was no beating her. And thankfully for her, the club stepped up. They scored 3 quick ones in the fourth to make it 4-0, or the third rather, to make it 4-0. And so then she could just sit back and just make saves. And sure, if I make enough saves,
the saves you got to make.
Exactly. And it's because of her keeping them in the game for 2 periods of like just an onslaught. Like I said, that second period was an onslaught. Toronto was, they spent most of the time shooting the puck. But she stopped them. And like she just wasn't going to be beat. And we talk about superstars putting the team on her back. That is what Corinne Schroeder did. So
she sure did. I do think, tip of the cap, stick taps and sellies to you, Corinne Schroeder. I do think there's an honorable mention for another goaltender who literally put the Kraken on his back in the Winter Classic, and that's Joey Decord. A 3-0 shutout, another first in Winter Classic history. He owned that game, and Vegas was same thing like you just said. Vegas was on him a lot. He made a couple of really outstanding saves. One specifically on Jack Eichel, where it was a wide open net and got a glove save out of nowhere. He definitely kept the Kraken, the momentum on the Kraken side the entire game. And while I say that, there wasn't really a chance for the Vegas Golden Knights. Truly, from what I saw from my view, like the Kraken had the entire game on their side, and Joey Decord was a huge reason for that, making key saves. So I know a couple weeks ago I said that the Kraken were out of it, and I didn't see anything positive. I don't know if I'm ready to say that they've turned things around because they still are out of a playoff spot, but they're on a 9-game point streak as of right now on Wednesday. And from the play that I just saw at the Winter Classic on Monday is like a complete 180 from the previous 2 games that I watched earlier in the year. So I'm hopeful that they can get into a wild card spot. I'm not necessarily sure that we can 100% say that yet, but I would love to see them work their way into that spot. And I do think, you know what? I said Grubauer was going to be a Vezina candidate this year. Obviously, that's not going to happen. If you can keep Decord's confidence up, roll with him and Drieger. Honestly, I mean, I know you spent the money on Grubauer, but man, you know what? Just keep Decord and Drieger if they're playing as well as they are. There's no reason to change that.
Yeah, I was able to watch a majority of the game, and the Kraken that I saw in that game was the Kraken I loved watching last year. They're a lot closer to the Kraken I was hoping to see this year. So I'm
sorry to interrupt you here, but they were physical too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that redirect from old boy Tolvanen in the beginning, like that first goal, like that redirect was perfect. It was a quality hockey game. What can I say?
Agreed. Yeah. And there isn't any details on the 2025 Winter Classic yet, but here's an idea. And I know Minnesota was just in the Winter Classic 2 years ago against St. Louis, but Minnesota Wild versus the Dallas Stars in St. Paul, Minnesota, old stars versus new stars, basically. I think that's a big Winter Classic thing, but I'm sure it'll probably be like Connor Bedard versus somebody. I'm sure it'll be in Chicago because I get it. It's marketable. I get you want marketable markets, but how is it that you have how many Canadian teams? Vancouver, Ottawa, Montreal, Winnipeg. None of them have been in a Winter Classic yet. Canadian teams have not been in a Winter Classic. How is that? Edmonton. How is that even possible? Calgary. You know what I mean?
Where winter actually happens.
What are we doing?
Let's not put the Winter
Exactly.
Classic
What
where
are we
winter
doing?
actually happens.
Yeah, what are we doing? Anyway, anyway. We're moving on from that. I'm sure it'll be Connor Bedard versus Sidney Crosby, Pittsburgh versus Chicago again, more than likely. But anyway, let's pull the goalie here. Something we don't love, and this is breaking. 33rd NHL teams expansion location revealed. Kevin Weeks says the project is moving full steam ahead with arena designs progressing swiftly and builder interviews underway. Quote, I'm told word on the street is that the South Forsyth project in suburban Atlanta, including an arena, is all ahead, full speed with the design moving quickly and interviews for builders taking place. That is from Hockey Book Hockey and Kevin Weeks' comment.
I know, right?
Why? Why?
I mean,
Why?
from what I understand, fan support wasn't the problem with the Thrashers. To be fair, I don't know that this is any better. Like,
right? It was. Yeah, I mean, really, what it comes down to is management, a management team, and an owner willing to put in money to put a quality hockey club on the ice. I do think. I mean, we look at the Yotes, right? They've not had an owner put in money into the squad for a long time, and it shows, right? But now we have a at least a better team on the ice, and fan support is through the roof, even if it is bandwagoners. How else do you build the squad? You get bandwagon people to jump on who then become fans, right? I'm right here. I'm right here because I love seeing the product. So I guess I see expansion as not necessarily like, oh, because it's going to Atlanta, more so like, why do we feel the need to add another team? Because then you're going to add a 34th to make it even, because that makes sense. Yep. All of a sudden now we're going to really start like diluting the product on the ice. Like, yeah, there's not a lot of hockey players, but all of a sudden now you have 34 teams that you have to fill. So, a 20 person squad on the ice plus a farm team. And like, man, all of a sudden you start to see like, I just see that as what we saw during COVID times, where there was like, I forget what they called the reserve squad of 9 people. It was like, you know what I'm talking about? But it's like fill-ins, right? In case somebody came down with COVID, they had the fill-ins, right? That's how I see it going in regular gameplay. If we start adding more teams, there's not enough quality guys. You're going to start icing AHL teams. That's like, we're going to have like 4 San Jose Sharks.
Yuck. I think to hammer your point home, I think what the biggest thing is the marketing point is supposed to be, we're trying to grow hockey, but you're not. And it would be different if hockey was hot here in America and a lot of kids were playing hockey and they were getting interested in hockey and playing juniors and going up and getting drafted, but they're not. It just, there are American hockey players, but there aren't that many to continue fueling the minor leagues of hockey. And even if it got hot now, you're talking 6 years before those kids are probably eligible for draft. And what is that? That's going to be 6 years of whatever this Atlanta club stinking. Like, I don't know, man. Like, it's a sticky situation.
Yeah,
because like
I agree. Because I don't need another. Oh, sorry, I'm cutting you off. I don't need another like Vegas Golden Knights first year going to the Stanley Cup Finals. I'm not saying that, but again, you're icing squads that are just going to not be great. Like, that's not good for the sport. That's not going to grow anything. Even if you put a solid team out on the ice, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be good. Right? And then all of a sudden, like, oh no, stick around with us, fans. We're going to be good in a few years. Normies aren't going to want to stick around for that. If you're not already a diehard hockey fan, you're not going to stick around for that. Just look at the league.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's really all based on money. It's just money, like,
Of
because
course.
I forget the actual numbers, but Vegas's expansion fee was like 600 million or something. Seattle's was 800 million. So this new expansion is easily going to be well over $1 billion fee, right? And that's just to the owners. Players don't see that, right? So it's just a money thing. That's all it ever comes down to, and I hate that.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, furthermore, it's obviously you have a huge TV market there in Atlanta that you're not tapping into. So again, I get all the business side of it. What's it going to do to the product? Is the product going to suffer? If you can figure out a way the product doesn't suffer, I still get very enjoyable NHL hockey games. All right. I just don't see that happening.
Well, to that same point, Justin, you bring up a very good point. Can we currently, right now, watch every single hockey game that is on when hockey games are being played? No, we
No.
can't. So,
No.
how do you ever expect another team to enter the league and then another team after that, and then we get to watch every single hockey game that we want to watch? It's not going to happen. It's not. Like, let's be real. It's not going to happen. So, yeah, I mean, I do hate to be a negative about it, but let's just look at the past. Currently in 2024, I couldn't watch I can't even watch a Capitals game, and I live in Virginia. I live 3 hours away, and I can't watch a Capitals game. So, like, it doesn't make any sense to me. But I digress.
To that point, though, like,
Stick taps. So another first ever. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say to that point, like Devs Caps tonight for the third time this year. This is the first time it's televised in a way that we can watch it. I've been dying to see why the Caps have the Devs number this year. This is going to be my first chance to do so in the third time that they've played.
Yeah, that's just. Anyway, we digress, but I'm sure it'll come up again naturally because it is the league. Another stick tap to a first ever Justine Krause Theode. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your last name, but she is the first ever woman to get a shutout in a men's league game in France. The French national team goaltender made history as she became the first ever woman to post a shutout in a men's league game in France. The 21-year-old made all 25 saves in the Phoenix de Reims 6-0 win over the Titans de Colmar, in French Division 2 action. So that was that was the other day. So that was from Hockey Worldwide. So stick taps, just women kicking butt all over the world.
Love to see it. Love to see it.
We do love to see it. So with that said, everybody be safe out there. Hey, watch your NHL games that you can. And of course, hey, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. We appreciate it. And you know what I mean? Play hard, keep your head up, and play to the whistle. Stick taps and sellies, boys. Clap it up.
Yeah.